Welcome back, everybody, to Titans Up Today. This is Jacob Vandersteen, episode 38. We are with Shital Mars. She is an entrepreneur and leader, and we're going to be talking about a very broad array of subjects here today. Our initial conversation was one of the most not only broad but deep in many respects of conversations I've had in a very long time. So, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. And I apologize for that.
Oh, no, it's a pleasure. And I'm sure that everyone's going to love it here today as well. And I want to start with a subject because people heard me say your name right there and they probably did not understand. That is your name. It's Sheethel.
Yes.
Sheethel, like lethal, was the what you gave me there to remember. And I want to explore what we talked about in our first conversation a little bit, where your name when you were younger, you got teased for it, and then it was misunderstood a lot as well in business, and it still is. People think it's first off, they think it's Chital, and second,
Hmm.
they think potentially you're a man, just based off that name, because I that's used in both respects. And so what we talked about is just the use of pronouns being specifically valuable for you. And I thought that was a really unique argument that I had never heard before when it comes to pronouns. So tell us a little bit more about that and some of your views around your path to where you are today.
Yes. So you're absolutely right. So I win all the bad name contests because there is no combination of letters in the English language where SHIT spells out another word.
Mm,
So I have gotten every form of joke about that growing up. But what I found interesting is when I grew up, the way my parents would say it and the way I would hear it in school, it was either Shital with a very harsh Indian accent, or it was Shital. So I went my whole life hearing it one of those two ways. I always introduced myself as Sheetal, and then when someone said it wrong back to me, moved on. I didn't care. I never corrected anybody. And I remember one person, and this was maybe months ago. Like I'm way too old to be finding this out now. But I months ago I introduced myself and said, "Hi, my name is Sheetal," and she went, "Sheetal like lethal." I'm like, "How obvious!" But because I'd heard it differently, I never even thought about it rhyming with anything. But now when I introduce myself and I go Sheetal like lethal, it makes it so easy for people to say it correctly back to me.
character as well, and it's just easy to remember, right? You become
Yeah.
uncomfortable at that point.
Yeah, and it's a little bit fun. And how do you forget that? But yeah, when you're talking about pronouns, and it was interesting for me because I have a unique argument for it because I have a unique name. Being a woman, being a person of color, being an executive, most people, when they see my email signature, would automatically, regardless of the fact that my name is unisex in India, there are Sheetals that are male, they would automatically assume I'm a man. And there's a different language, there's a different interaction and rules of engagement when you think you're communicating with a man as opposed to when you think you're communicating with a woman. And I would go around to trade shows or do sales calls or even investment pitches. And it would be me and somebody else. And because the person I was communicating with thought it was a man, they would immediately turn to the men beside me and shake their hands and think, that's who the CEO is. It must be one of these guys. And I'd be like, hello, no, it's me. So I actually found it helpful to put my pronouns in signature blocks because it just automatically started this rule of engagement. You already now, when we meet in person or on a phone call, know I'm a woman. Not that I care about someone approaching me or speaking to me as if I was a man, but it is different. And I don't know, it's a bit subconscious thing for people when they think they're meeting a man or meeting a woman. They're going to use different language.
Sure. Yeah, no doubt.
So I don't take offense to it. It doesn't bother me. I think of the joke I told you is the episode of Friends where it's like, who gets the TV guide? And she goes, Chandler. And no, it's not Chandler. It's Ms. Chanandler Bong. Like it doesn't bother me at all to add my pronouns here. It doesn't, it actually makes things a lot easier.
Which again is just something that most people probably have never thought of. And I think it'd be helpful for everybody to have a little bit more understanding in that sense.
Yeah.
But your career path as a leader, CEO, Progressive Care Inc., and now your own consulting firm, Mars Enterprises, correct? That's
Mars Corporate Advisors.
Corporate
Should
advisor,
I should
enterprises.
change it to Mars Enterprises. Probably taken.
Yeah. Anyways, so how did you work your way up to becoming a leader? And one thing, of course, I'm, very inquisitive about as well is just the perfect student 4.0. You're right. I'm very curious about how someone like yourself actually lives and achieves those things. But then, of course, I think it'd be good for everyone to hear your path to a leader and now running your own company and CEO of a significant organization.
So my path to leadership is really unique because most people they will go there's a very linear track, right? You go undergrad, go MBA, you go consulting, and then from there you usually get recruited to any VP or C-suite spot. That's the way most people get there. Or if you're going to get there organically, it's being pulled up from a family business, right? So you work there, you worked with the father forever, and then you become manager. And there's a lot of stories of that being mentored through the process. Mine is very haphazard and lucky. And that. The way I got into it is I started in investment banking and I went to a boutique investment banking firm and I started as an unpaid intern. And I will tell you, I was absolutely awful at that.
Hmm.
Awful. 22, out of college, scared out of my mind, didn't know what my name was. And then my job was to call and prospect clients. My job was to pick up the phone, and it was absolutely terrifying for me. So I suffice it to say, I got fired very quickly
Hmm.
from that job. And I went to the owner that day. I literally walked from the person who hired me's office down the hallway into the owner's office. And I said, look, I know I'm not very good at prospecting or getting on the phone, but there's a lot here that I can do and a lot I am good at. And I think you need the help. I don't know what gave me the chutzpah to think I could just waltz myself into an office
Yeah.
and do that. But I did. And the first thing he did, he's like, all right, investment banking firms are often audited. He handed me a bunch of envelopes and he says, I'm under audit right now. I'm late on getting them everything. And I resolved all the audits in less than a month.
Mhm.
And it was really one of those things where having the ability to, one, believe I was good at something, two, being nosy as hell. People underestimate being observant in the work environment. I believe fully in being a student of the business you support, whether you're a cashier or a janitor or customer service, it doesn't matter what level you are in the organization. Listen, pay attention, think about the business, think creatively about the business. What would you do? If you're looking to move up, now, not everybody is, but if you're looking to move up and be a leader, you have to think about how you would lead, even if you're not in that position. So what I did in that 4 months that I was an intern is I read everything in the office, everything, every file, every customer name. I knew them like the back of my hand. I knew their numbers like the back of my hand just by listening and paying attention. And that was really well received. And because I understood the business, I could help guide the business to being better. So I went from that past teen series licenses and became COO like that.
Amazing.
And I never look back. I've been in executive leadership since I was 23.
Yeah. And many licenses, by the way, for everybody. We'll share her LinkedIn profile. Many licenses. I've never seen somebody with so many licenses.
If you could get it, if you could be a supervisor and there was a license for it, I took the test and passed it.
Exactly. One key part I'd like to zoom in on there. We're going to continue from that COO part, but just the journey itself. You mentioned the chutzpah part and where that came from, and also the non-linearity of your path to get to where you are today. But if we observe prior to that, before 22, when you're in school, perfect grades, excellent student in every respect, that is an incredibly linear path. And so you through right, it is right. It's academics. Like, what's more linear than academics? And I say that because I was I was not the perfect student. I never studied really, but I would always do well. I was that guy. I was like, okay, I would sit in class, I would listen, but I had a sense of not an approach of nonlinearity with the way I looked at school, and then I had to learn linearity later. in my life.
Yeah.
When I got into business and everything, say I'm gonna start my own company. Okay, now I need to start to perform in a more linear fashion in my life, right? That's what I had to learn. It was almost the opposite. And right where it's you go from linear to now you're in an environment that you actually have to have some force. The environment you were in responded to force, not like direct linear, hey, I'm really good at this. I you get what I'm saying?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah.
And it's an interesting point because for me, personally, I view perfect grades, the straight A student, as a gift and a curse.
Hmm.
It actually probably has hurt me more than helped me professionally because there's a certain personality type you assign to someone when they say 4.0. When you see a straight A student, you and think about watch the Scripps National Spelling Bee, right? You immediately picture that kid. And when you're interviewing or you see this on a resume, I've found that most hiring managers or HR people will look at a resume like that and see 4.0 and immediately go dull,
Hmm.
boring, unimaginative, not a risk taker, right? Like they will throw it away as someone who isn't capable of thinking out of the box, thinking 10 steps ahead of the business. They go, this is someone who's a doer. This is, and I even had that even in my career, even as an executive. I would have my board and my fellow executives treat me as a doer. Oh, you're just the human computer. Let me just insert commands and you'll just spit them out because that's how my brain works. So I got pigeonholed a lot as not having the ability to think creatively and think about future revenue drivers or any of that. Oh no, you're just the math whiz. You're just the computer. But at the same time, I am also a person that it's all or nothing. I'm either going to do it all the way, I'm going to get everything out of this class that I can possibly get out of it, or I'm not going to go. And so when I approach school, part of that is Asian hardwiring, where anything less than perfect is unacceptable and very much a cliche with that growing up. But it was also this idea that you work hard, you succeed hard, you prove your worth, you prove that your knowledge is better than everybody else. And there is some reward to that at the end. And it was a rude awakening when I left college and started to apply for jobs. And the best I could get was an unpaid internship off of Craigslist ad, right? Nobody was recruiting me because of those grades. And it's different to think about it that way. When I talk to other people going to get their MBAs or going into college and they go, "Oh, I want to get straight A's like you." I'm like, "No, you don't. No, you absolutely do not." Because it doesn't no most of the time nobody asks you unless you're going into a technical field. So unless you're going for your med school, your LSATs and you're going to law school or you're going for engineering, any of those really technical schools are going to care a lot about the grades. Everything else that's entrepreneurial, that actually hurts you. But I like and when I went to my MBA, I even tried not to care, not to be because I'm an adult now, not to care about the grades and not worry so much about being perfect. But then there was this voice in my head going, "But you know this better than anybody. So how can you walk away? How can you let a professor think you don't know this or that you're just like see like everybody else? You have to crush it. You have to leave, you have to do better than anyone has ever done this before." And there's a sickness to that, but that's how I approached it. And
Right.
because of that, the only benefit I would say of approaching school that way, where I have to reach very high, perfection is unnecessary, but reaching very high is if you're paying for school, which most people are getting loans and paying for it themselves, go to class, read the material, learn it to the best of your ability because dollar per bit of data goes down. To go to school and pay for school and to walk away not having learned everything you possibly could have learned is to me a waste of money. And that can be controversial, but I think it is.
And to really go back to that moment of you developing the chutzpah, because I think there's a certain lesson in that. So you went from the linear world into this environment that responds to strength, it responds to directness. And when they say, all right, we're letting you go, Sheethel, there was a something in your head that just contrasted your identity so much. You're like, you know what? I worked so damn hard. I might not have been that good at this particular application of my skills, but I worked so damn hard that I'm going to go in there and I'm going to tell that person what I think. And that it's like the rocks in our life and our journey are what makes us wake up, right? You could have just been like, oh, you're dang, they're right. I'm not good at this and left and gave up, but you didn't and you pushed through and then you were validated over the long term of becoming COO. And I think
Yeah,
it's a huge lesson for people, whether they come from one or the other. They come from being linear and not doing well in school to wanting to be an entrepreneur to vice versa, doing really well in school and struggling in entrepreneurship or whatever application. You can, if you just push through and perhaps you can enlighten us a little bit further, get to that point where you have success and you can become a leader.
the chutzpah actually comes from a long-lived mindset. So people, you immediately think that wouldn't be part of my personality, that I would be meek. And if anybody met me at that time, and I still talk to everybody from those days, they said, "Yeah, you spent 4 months not uttering a word.
Hmm.
You didn't. You just showed up and left, and we didn't know if you knew English. We didn't know anything about you." And those were the first bit of words that I chose to say. But that it actually is a fundamental part of my personality, which is I fully believe that if you want something, you go get it.
Hmm.
There is no room for waiting for someone to give it to you. And I have had to fight for this life my whole life. Girls do not do this. Not Indian girls for sure. They don't go do this. And they don't when they have personalities like mine, it very quickly the culture will try to make you smaller, quieter, more manageable. And I've had to fight to be taken seriously in the math world, fight to be taken seriously in the business world, fight to be taken seriously in economics or civics or philosophy or whatever class I was taking, whatever place I was going. I had to fight to be there. I had to. And so if I wanted to run the junior economic society of a university or be run the math club at school, no one was going to tell me no. No one. I'm going to do it. If you don't want me to do it, I'll start my own club. I don't need you. That's how I approach it. And so when that moment happened, one, I also really needed a job and I also knew they really needed the help. So it was this perfect meet in the middle. And I said, okay, the heck you will. Like in my head, no, I want to be here. I know I can contribute. I know you need me. I know you want me. And that preparation of knowing that I have the skills, I know I have the tenacity, I know I can hold my own in this room, led me to walk into that office. And so there is a little bit of, especially amongst girls and women, there's a trepidation. There are times I've done that same exact thing, walked in that office, been told no, walked in the office, and also been told no, no. And I have to walk out. And then I go, okay, if not with you, then I don't need you. If
Right.
not with you, I'll go do it somewhere else.
Yeah, in many ways, capitulation. And we talked about in our first conversation the digital world, the digital revolution that has occurred, and now we're sitting doing this over Zoom. It seems, and to bring some of my own experiences back when I was young, 15, selling in person, you actually were getting so many no's before you got a yes within the hour that you're with somebody. Or
Yeah.
maybe even they say the point is that I'm getting at is in the digital world here, we're sitting here over Zoom, and when you're scheduled for 30 minutes with somebody, they can literally just hang up and they're gone. So sometimes we just capitulate and say, maybe I'm going to try to push my ask a little later. I don't want to hear no yet because then the Zoom clicks off and they're gone. It's like now that we're in the digital world, it's just so much easier to just accept the mediocrity that comes with the ability to just walk away and
Yeah, and be forgettable too. Like that 30 minutes, you see someone from the neck up, there's no drinks, there's no food, there's no story, there's not time, right? So they're like, I'm busy, no chit chat, no small talk. You get into brass tacks right away. And it's hard to relationship build that way. I will say it's hard, not impossible.
hmm
It's absolutely not impossible. You can build relationships over Zoom. You can. But and you're right, it's pushing that ask. The first meeting is getting to know each other. I'm a person, you're a person, you like me, I like you.
Mm,
And when someone likes you, and this is where I get upset with especially the younger generation who keeps their camera off, especially in a sales call. I need to know your person. If I like you, I'm more likely to buy from you. If I like you, I'm more likely to hire you. Being able to make eye contact. Yes, that happens on Zoom too. Look at someone's face. A lot of times I see people doing this where they're talking to their profile, right?
mm,
Look at someone's face and talk about who you are as a person. You will find those are those interviews or those meetings that were scheduled for 30 minutes and went an hour. And they're like, "Oh, I'm late. Oh, I missed my next appointment." And you didn't even get to the business stuff. And guess what? Now because they're late and they're like, "Oh, we didn't even get to it." Now you have to schedule another meeting. Now you have to communicate again. And they're almost looking forward to it because they enjoyed the first meeting so much. So not everybody's your person. Sales is a bunch of no. And you've
mm,
heard the old adage. I used to say it all the time. No just means not yet, which in a personal context, very bad. Let's not
mm,
say that. But in a professional context, no is not yet. No means I don't understand it. I'm not ready for it. I don't have the budget for it. It just there a lot of times if you connect with them again and continue to build that relationship, hey, how's that software working for you? Are you still enjoying it? Is it still delivering the way you expected it to? Has your budgets changed? Have you grown? Have your needs changed? Can I introduce something else that might work for you? Over that time of building that relationship, all of a sudden they want to work with you. They want to find a way to work with you because they like you. I used to call it the sleeper girlfriend method.
mm,
It's one of those things where where you have two people, and this is like a sales philosophy. You have two people, and I would just check in with them, check in with them. We would go out for drinks, not talk business, right? We would get on Zoom and I would just say, check in. What's going on? What's your environment like? I would sell them nothing. But all of a sudden, they're talking to me at least once a month and then once a week. And before they know it, we're married. They
mm,
don't even realize it because we've communicated so much. It works surprisingly well because it's just personable and they want to maintain the relationship. They want to find a reason to continue to work with you. Is it foolproof? No, it's not foolproof. And you will hear lots of no's in sales. And if you're going to be a salesperson, you got to develop that no is not yet mentality. No is redirection mentality. No is just, okay, you saved me a bunch of time not barking up this tree. Now I can go spend it on someone else who needs it.
mm.
Like
Yeah,
it's okay.
you brought it back around to that core point and then the topic there that I think is relevant, and people need to hear that. People need to know that the relationship building process that occurs even over Zoom, to embrace it rather than thinking like things should be in a certain way or it's something we can embrace.
It is something we can embrace. It's challenging because I know as people we're pack animals. We actually like physical connection. I actually like being in physical presence, which I know the return to office thing is very controversial, but it actually is better mental health wise to leave your house, even for the commute to go to work and have a different environment in which you work in than the one in which you live in. There is something to that for a person. Now, does it costs more? And we as corporate leaders need to understand how do we make this enticing? And it's not parties and pizza parties because that's a joke, right?
Mm,
But it is how do we, when someone is in office, I even saw this. One of my clients did a full local return to office mandate, 5 days a week. All the executives would come in and they did it for, hey, we're not collaborating, we're not generating new business, we're not innovating in the space where we used to when we used to sit at the conference table for 4 hours on Friday afternoons or Friday mornings an idea and do brainstorming in person because it's natural and it flows and you can stomach a long session like that a lot longer when you're in person. I went there, I'm consulting for them. Every meeting I had, even though I was in office, was over Zoom. They never left their office.
that's
I can hear them through the wall.
that's ridiculous.
But that's the thing is if you're gonna, because it's so convenient, people default to that. in corporate, even the leaders don't want to be there. Even the leaders don't want to return to office. And when they are in office, they're not taking advantage of being together, and they're not making being together beneficial to themselves or to their employees. So then why do it? If your employees are going to be on Zoom all day, they can do that stuff from home.
You got to leverage and
And
tap
it's
into the
cheaper.
benefit of being in person as well.
Yeah.
One thing that I'd like to highlight here is you mentioned just that want of it, whatever that thing is. So you wanted the job or you needed the job, they needed you, and you just had this desire and you've applied that through different points of your life. I think that's something we don't talk about. We talk about like no, what is it? BATNA, the negotiation framework,
Yeah.
best alternative.
Yes.
I don't think that desire part is talked about enough of when you really want something and say, you know what, I really want this. And whether I get it from this person or another, I want this specific thing. Just that clarity is also often what drives people to ask the next question or really just have the gusto to say, you know what, here, this is what I want. And in these business situations, and I think that directness and clarity really is a lesson that people can learn as well.
I think so too. And it's one you have to arrive at organically. Because for a lot of people, they will take obstacles and redirection and no and negative feedback and really internalize it. I'm no exception, by the way. I do too. When I get that negative feedback, or I get told no, or I get told we don't need you anymore, or you're not the right fit for us, you can easily come home and say, yeah, it's me. Something's wrong with me. And it must be something deficient about me that I can't get this. And you think, oh, this is the dream job. This is
Right.
the place. I've worked my whole life for this. I've practiced, I've prepared. And then the door shuts in your face. And you go, what did I do wrong? And I think about this in terms of relationships and professionally. It didn't fit. I'm not their person. And I'll be sad for a bit. And then I wake up and go, okay, there's nothing wrong with me. That's just not my person. That's just not my company. I wouldn't have been happy there if they didn't like me from and didn't see the skill set, didn't see the value. They would never create an environment that I'd be happy in. Never. And we have this idea and we write down on paper the vision board and the goals, and I'm going to work for McKinsey, and then I'm going to be this and I'm going to be that, and then McKinsey doesn't. Like, I had the same. McKinsey doesn't happen. And then working for a Fortune 500 doesn't happen. And getting recruited and headhunted to be in the government doesn't happen. I had all this stuff in a vision board. And then I realized I don't want to do any of those things. The dream isn't exactly the dream. It's why you have to internalize and ask yourself, why did I want those things? Why did I want those things? So I wanted to work for McKinsey mostly for a prestige thing. It's one of those things that once you say you did it, it's like you can write your ticket, right? You can walk in any door and they automatically just know you're great because McKinsey doesn't hire at anything less than great. So it was an arrogance thing. It was an ego thing that I wanted to work at McKinsey. I didn't want to help people that way. I didn't want to consult with people that way. I didn't want to be led that way. I didn't want that work environment, but I wanted the title. I wanted that, thinking that would validate me and validate all the work and all the experience and the 4.0 and all that stuff. And it doesn't. It doesn't validate any of it. And then you find, and then ask anybody who has worked in a lot of these big consulting firms or even these fortune, they burn out really quick. And they go, oh, now I'm gonna open a farm and do something else. Finding ways when you think about what you want, it's more important to think about why you want it. That's helpful for me, especially when I'm getting in a rut of running up against that brick wall over and over and over again, right? You keep running in headstrong and you just can't get past this plateau. And you go, okay, this is what's in front of me. This is what I want. Why do I want that? And then once you realize why you want it, you'll find there's a crack in the wall. You can find your way around it to get to where you want to go.
And one of my favorite parts about Titans Up Today is by talking with people like yourself, helping more people realize that internal conversation that you went through when something doesn't go well and you're like, oh, it was me. I must not be that good. I must not be able to do that. What's wrong with me, right? I think so many people that I know who aren't out building businesses or really pursuing their goals full out, like they're capable of, and really putting themselves out there, they feel or believe or perceive that people like yourself who go out and achieve a lot do not have that don't go to that same place when something bad happens, right? They think, oh, I think negatively sometimes, or they think negatively about themselves, or they get down about specific events. They think that people like you or people who achieve a lot do not have that dialogue.
I would argue we have more of it than the average person. I
Mm.
would argue that the most successful people are successful because of that scar tissue and that chip on their shoulder, that need to prove themselves. They are constantly seeking validation through professional success and achievement. You will see that over and over again, that a lot of people that are successful are the hardest on themselves. They often don't think they're any good. And for some reason, that mentality of I'm not very good, so I need to prove myself to myself and be even better than that. And you just, failure is not an option, right? Yes, you fail. There's interim failures, but it's not an option to just lay down and sleep for a month or 6 months. You still have kids, spouses, parents, friends. You still have to get up and go do. And I learned this the hard way of going through bouts of extreme depression, going, this is not solving any of my problems. It's just not doing it. I can't just lay here. And so I have to go. And so then you take that first step and you say, I'm going to go. And people think the first step is the action. First step is deciding to take the action and not sit back down. The first step is a mindset. It's not an actual productive task that you completed. It's saying I'm not going to do nothing, which sounds like the same as I'm going to do something, but it's not, because when you say I'm not going to do nothing, you can't go backwards and lay down. And that leads to positivity. And I am a big believer in this. Positivity begets positivity. You speak it, you say you want it, you think positively of yourself. That reflects in how you carry your weight, your shoulders being back, a smile on your face. When you think highly of yourself, other people think there must be something good to think about you. That confidence breeds more confidence, and then people have more confidence in you. So it's one of these snowball effects. Just like negativity can snowball out of control, the minute you decide to stop thinking negatively, and it is a moment to just say, stop, I'm not going to think negatively now, and you think positively, that too spirals up and up.
So let's talk about that and where would you say your source of confidence has come from, and has it evolved throughout your life, or is it really just, yeah, what would you say it is specifically?
I want to say the cliche of it's preparation, right? I worked hard, I studied hard, but I honestly think there are moments that I forget I'm me. I honestly just, I get headstrong. And that too is a gift and a curse. There's a bit of stubbornness probably, and a bit of arrogance that's just part of my personality to get the confidence. But I'm also a crisis oriented person. So when things go bad, my brain shifts to being task focused. It just does. And so I'd like to say, oh, meditate, or I do something special that if you did that, you would have confidence. But it really is one of those things of, I honestly forget my deficiencies. I just forget that's something I should be thinking about. And then it just allows me to push forward. It is something that I wish I could say you could practice it, and you can practice getting yourself out of a negative headspace. But and probably the cliche is affirmations help. Positive thinking helps. Find Being very aware of what's going on in your head helps, because
Mm.
people can get lost in their own head. And if you know you're getting lost, you can actually control yourself and come back out of it. Some of that confidence comes from that. I would say some of the confidence comes from, and people think it's always internal, help. I would say that part of that confidence was built up over time of people believing in me. I say it all the time. I had people pick me up when I was less than nothing, less than nothing. I had people wake me up and say, "No, you're still capable. I believe in you." And that starts a catalyst of momentum. You need champions. People think you don't. Like, "Oh, we're captains in the industry. We didn't need any help. We can do it on our own, and there's something better about me." No, you need champions. Do good work for good people, and they will find you when you need them most. And they will champion you, and they will help you. And they won't ask for anything. They're not a lot of them. You won't have a million champions in your lifetime, but you only need a couple. And I
Mhm.
have a couple of really great ones.
It reminds me of Andrew Carnegie, how he started out as basically the lowest of the lowest low in the steel industry, right? Just a runner running steel pieces from one place to the next. And I'm sure that he had tons of champions or people who picked him up and believed in him along the way, who encouraged him to the point where he could become at that, time, 100 or so years ago, the richest man on the planet.
And that's so this is an important point that I wish to make over and over again because I talk about this, especially I sit on a board for empowering women and girls. But I talk about this idea, we talk about push, the push theory, empower women, give them confidence, give them skills, have them have the chutzpah to walk into the interview and believe that they can get it. Even if it's not that one, it's the next one, it's the next one. We're doing a lot of push communication of telling people, okay, you can just put yourself out there. We're doing a lot less pull communication. And I think as leaders, one of the things that I've espouse as a leader is I need to have my eyes open on who I can pull. You need to be aware. Do you know who's hungry in your office? Do you see them committing, working late, working hard, helping others, not asking for extras and not being whiny and whatever? And I'm whiny too. I get it. I get it. But there are those people say they don't, nobody wants to work. There are, even now, I have people in my offices, in my clients who go the extra mile, who work around the clock. Do you see them? Can you recognize them? Can you pull them out of a hat? Would you know their name? And can you pull them forward and say, I see all that you're doing. Why are you doing that? Not in a negative way. Why are you doing that? Why are you working so hard for this company? What are you trying to achieve? What are you looking to get at? Don't wait for them to walk in your office and ask you for a raise or a promotion. When you see someone acting like a leader in your office, empowering teams, running a department, and they're just, you know, not even management. You can see this amongst just team members. Pull them. Give them the raise without them asking. Give them the promotion without them asking because that's the job that they're doing. That's the job they want to do. And then build them up. They already are leveraging a skill set that you didn't give them for you. Pull them and now figure out what other skills are deep in that bench. Can you pick them all out? Can you leverage all of them and reward them accordingly? I think we need to do more pull communication because that's how we create future leaders. And I don't think we're doing it.
So much to connect the dots thereof. Piece in particular is that we talked about is so we look at pull communication. I think when as entrepreneurs, when you start something and you're building up and you're figuring out how do you get something to work with like the minimal input of dollars of time and money or what have not time,
Right.
but dollars and other people's time and stuff like that. You're trying to get the maximal out of the minimal. And
Right.
when you get good at that, after a while, you just persist in that mindset, but often don't realize at some point that that mindset will hold you back. And you have to incentivize and pull somebody along, realize not everyone is the same as you. They're not going to do the same, they're not going to take the same path you did. And that when you do get to a point of being able to give back and pay people well and compensate them, that creating peace of mind for that person who is willing to put in the work is probably one of the most valuable things you could do for your company. You know what? If 15 or if another $10,000 a year or a month or whatever it is puts this person in a position where I can really tap into them, imagine how much better that could be versus maybe I need to make this person prove it a little bit more. They didn't do that one thing. So I'm going to wait to give them that promotion or the benefit or I think we lose touch. And I've seen that very repeatedly through a lot of different people and companies.
And we're seeing it over and over is that you have high performing individuals who go above and beyond. And I talk about it being a prison of your own greatness, right? Being in a prison of your own greatness, because we think of labor as a commodity. So if I have a team member who's functioning at the strength of three, right? Leading teams, solving problems, it can work autonomously, never causes me an issue, right? We think, what a great deal. I can pay, if to replace that person, I would need to pay 3 times as much. I would need three of that person
Mhm.
to get the same productivity. And so you keep them where they are because you're generating so much productivity for so little money. And you can only do that for so long. And that's why we see you're either being promoted or you're quitting and moving on. That these jumping, there's no ladder now, right? Like you have, in order to go up the ladder, you have to jump from place to place to place to place to get up there because someone else, another company burned out their manager. And so now they'll pull you and pay you the money because they're desperate and they're going to pay you. And then you're going to burn out there. They're not going to pull you along. And you go, okay, they burned me out here. I'm going to go to the next place who burned out their last VP. And that's how I'll get that way. I think it's that brain drain you have from allowing high talent, highly productive, high performing individuals and tell them, oh, you just meet expectations. No, they didn't. Then all of that is nonsense. You're losing competitive edge. And I would look at a lot of legacy businesses, a lot of Fortune 500s, even just regular businesses who have adopted this mindset. Pay the least you can, negotiate them down, make them hungry. If they can't eat, they're going to leave. But you will find that the innovation, the speed of innovation over the last 20 or so years in a lot of these companies, and we're not talking about AI and some of these other technologies, but the innovation isn't there. We're not making cars are the same today as they were 20 years ago. A lot of the products we're using, Steve Jobs leaves, this iPhone is the same today
Mm.
as
Yep.
it was 10 years ago. The innovation just is not there. The creative thinking isn't there because every time someone thinks creatively or is a risk taker or a high performer, the minute they try to go, okay, now reward me for that performance, I'm going to give you ideas or let me participate in ideating. Everybody puts the brakes on these people and lets them leave and jump to the next place. And then it takes them a couple years to ramp up there. They get blocked over there and then they take it. So now we just have a whole bunch of task-based workers. And what's the point of that? The world has not changed much, and it should have, given how quickly we were innovating for a period of time.
So I have Bill Lau. It's going to be a guest on my podcast here in the next month. And he said something that was pretty profound in our initial conversation. I'd like to get your thoughts on this. Is in the corporate world, the covenant is built around trust. So the unspoken agreement is with you shouldn't try too much because you might break the trust of others around you. That's right. They got their salaries, things are comfortable. People want to just maybe take step by step. Versus in the entrepreneurial world, it's more around the covenant is around conviction. And conviction is
Mhm.
what creates the innovation because with conviction, you get the ability to pursue something aggressively, like you're talking about, having that desire, pursuing it aggressively and going for it, having conviction. And you're rewarded for that in entrepreneurship. Whereas in a corporate environment, if you're someone who's lower, and then the VP, and you have high degree of conviction, then I think it's Rule 22 or whatever it is of the 48 laws of power,
Mhm.
never outshine the master. You're breaking the trust by being someone who has high conviction.
And it is in the corporate environment, it's a threat. And I've felt that fundamentally in the corporate world. I was always a threat. And I couldn't help but be that because I thought high performance, give, do, show what you're capable, show your potential, and it would be rewarded. And it absolutely was not. Because, and it's a weirder thing, even when you have female leaders above you, because we think with female leaders, they had to fight so hard for that seat. There's only one, there's not 100 seats, there's only one seat, and she's in it. That's all the girls that are going to be in leadership, just her. And so when you outshine, she has to get rid of you because why wouldn't leadership above her go, there's someone better than you? I'll put her in your seat and you're out the door. and I'll pay her less. That happens all the time. People get promoted to that next level and get paid less than the person who previously occupied that seat. But I see it with men too. I see it all the time where, yes, you can't outshine your boss. It is a very threatening place. I, and that's the difference between management and leadership, I think. I wanted to pull people up so I'm out of a job. If I'm doing it, I should be pulling people up so far up this chain that I'm in the board, I'm on my yacht, I'm living my best life. I shouldn't want to be here. How do I make now my team this person who's clearly phenomenal, right? Okay. How do I put her in my seat? And how do I get the next seat? That's how it should be.
The thought that comes up there is many will search to be important. They'll say, how do I make myself important? Versus the true leader says, how do I make myself irrelevant? How do I make myself unimportant?
Yes. How do you make yourself unimportant? And I think this might be a millennial mindset. And I'm sure I saw this somewhere about the difference between Gen Zs and Gen X and millennials and their approach to leadership. But it was, how do I take a group of people who have a lot in common or nothing in common, a diversity of mindsets and skill sets and backgrounds and perspectives to all want the same thing, which is the success of my company, not their company. Most of them won't own any of it, right? They're going to come, they're going to work 6 months, and then they're going to go to school or get another job or become doctors or whatever they're going to be, right? This is the gig between weekends job. I was aware of it, not for all of them. And you have to know who, but for a lot of them. But how do I take this group of people and ask and get them to leave the baggage at the front door of the kids and the spouses and the stress and the help, because they're going to spend majority of their life working with me, if they work with me, at my office. They're giving the majority of their waking hours to me. How do I make them want to do that? How do I make them want to do that? And how do I build an environment at work where they're getting something out of it? Where if they leave, they have skills that they wouldn't have gotten anywhere else. They have abilities that they wouldn't have gotten anywhere else. They have confidence that they wouldn't have gotten anywhere else. And they got everything out of that job that they wanted to get out of it. How do I do that? And that's requiring being transparent, letting people learn, sit in on management meetings. I used to let that happen all the time. We're having a senior leadership meeting. I would have it out in the open. Let them listen. You will feel, and then all of a sudden you have people come up to you and go, I have an idea, or this happened, or that happened. You have a lot of people all wanting the same thing, and they hear us debating a problem. And I will I'll never forget this. We're debating a major problem with one of our customers. We don't talk to them like the salesperson might talk to them. We don't talk to them intimately. The person who takes their orders every day talks to them every single day. And we were all debating, what do we do? How do we leverage this? They want to leave. What's going on? And it was a scary moment. And we had this out in the open. We're like, if this happens, we're going to have to lay off half the staff. It's a big customer. One of the people said, I overheard this. What you're thinking is the problem is not actually the problem. They hired a new person who wants to go sell to this other guy. So if you can beat their price by this much, they're going to kick that guy out and keep staying with you. There's other guys promising a bill of goods. That's what's happening because I hear it. We just by knowing that, just by letting the problem solving be democratized. Oh, we need to lay off half the staff. What happens if you tell everybody, hey, we need to cut costs? The entire company. We need to cut costs and layoffs are on the table. You know what I've had some of my staff do? We're all going to take a 10% cut so we all can stay. I'll take it too. By the way, I got to put into this kitty. I'll take it too. But now we're all staying. And guess what? They come to work every day and they want to come into work every day because I'm going to sacrifice for them. They know that I'm the first paycheck that's going to get cut, not theirs. And they're willing to figure out and problem solve. They like, oh, if we need to cut costs, we don't need this. Let us come up with ideas so we don't lose our team. I think that's a better approach to corporate leadership than what we've got, which is labor is a commodity, pay the least amount you can for it, let them move, we'll put another body in here, let them churn out, and we'll put another body again. And that's labor. That's how we approach labor now. I think
Mm.
it's actually counterproductive.
And I'm more important and I need to be protected and my lifestyle is the best and nobody can take away from it. This reminds me a little bit of what you're talking about is Jensen Huang, the CEO of NVIDIA.
Hmm.
I'm just going to use the numbers in my head, but I think it's more. But he famously says, I have 35 direct reports. Like he work
Yeah.
rather than most guys are like, I only want three. And I'm because that's
Yeah.
kind of like they derive the importance from like the less number of reports, the
Hmm.
report they have. For him, it's like, hey, our offices are completely open flooring. I think there's a term for it, but just open floor offices where
Yes.
anybody can come in, anybody can say what needs to be said or what they need to say, and that's the way he leads. Is just being more immersed and connected with the company, and by extension, he is likely very decisive in what he does and says, "Hey, okay, if this person comes and talks to me. What is the merit of that? How can we use it and let it reach its outcome versus." What is the status of this person? And right, if you would have
Right.
that approach, you would have had to lay 50% of your people off.
Right.
And again, that comes back around to that ability to not need to be so important. And I
Yeah.
just
And
that's such a powerful topic that I think we've unearthed here for people. So
I think so. And I think there's an ambition quality. And I am fundamentally, if nothing else, ambitious. That is who I am to a T. But that ambition can be, again, why do I want that? Why do I want to get there? For a lot of people, having that VP title, having that C-suite title, having that entrepreneur owner title is what they've been working for. It's a status symbol. It's who they are. And it immediately puts them, and I will tell you all that I even said it before, we're the hardest on ourselves, like these groups of highly successful people, that if I'm the same as my workers, then what am I? Creating this adversarial relationship between you and your team. I need to push them. I need to get the most out of them. They don't work hard. Okay. What do you get out of that? Like, how do you go home and feel good? Like, they feel good because they hit this title means they're better than somebody. They need that. They need to feel like they're better than somebody. I don't need to feel that. I really don't. Because I'm not better than anybody. And that feels, by the way, when you can get to that place where I'm not better than anybody, that feels really good. I cannot recommend that feeling enough, that when you can interact with any person, and that's what, if I wanted to go and meet the president, he's not better than me. If I wanted to meet Elon Musk, he's not better than me. So I also don't get starstruck much. They're not better than me. I'm not better than them. And we can now just meet as people. That's a lot better. It feels a lot better than that. And I would say, even with executives, if you've met, a lot of them are in therapy. They have, it's high stress because they're trying to maintain this position for ego. If you can let it go, there actually is enough work for everybody. There
Mhm.
is. There's enough opening for everybody if we wanted it.
and it's almost, you have to have a bit of perspective is one word, but there's another word where when you set a purpose, which most people who end up being very successful do, they set a purpose that is very big. And when they do that, they can contextualize themselves appropriately within this grand scheme and scale of their vision to the point where they do feel this sense of, I'm not super important. You get what I'm saying? When you see this massive thing and you're like, I'm only part of it. If I need 1,000 people to do this, I'm one person and I can work as hard as I can, but I need to go inspire 1,000 people to go get this thing done. Then you have that great sense of perspective and scale that says, I'm just a little piece. I got to do my part right. And I think many entrepreneurs begin their lives having that ability to be, as you said, the chip on the shoulder, the thing that they don't want to be, the thing that they're afraid of. They usually say that entrepreneurs have that, and they also have
Mm-hmm.
a big vision at the same time. So
Right.
getting at is just that ability to have that perspective with oneself and not losing it along the way to the ego that once you are leading 1,000 people and you're getting closer and you're achieving that goal, that ego doesn't start to get in the way or even just along the way to get there and prevent you from getting there.
Yeah. I think, especially for high achieving entrepreneurs, and I see a lot in my entrepreneur groups, is the success is the destination and I need to sell my company for 100 million plus, right? Like I need to make $1 billion. I need to own a yacht. They had this, that goalpost keeps moving for them, that they're never satisfied. And I think what you find is that when you get to a place of success, and for a lot of people, that VP title, that C-suite title, that entrepreneur title is that place of success. You've made something of yourself. I'm important. I matter. I'm validated by this set of letters and accolades. That success, they go home at night and it's still an empty feeling. They don't feel important. They don't feel validated. They don't feel good about how far they've come and what they've accomplished. And so they go, okay, I need to achieve more. I need to get more. I need another bonus. I need another thing. I need and you, even when you look at the ultra billionaire group, right? None of those, all those guys have more money than God, more money than they can spend, their kids can spend. It will take 4 generations of haphazard drug addiction to get rid of all of this wealth, right? And they still need more. It's still not enough. They're not okay. They don't go, okay, there's statues erected for me. I'm winning medals of honor in the government. I'm traveling. There's ticker tape parades for me everywhere I go. And they still go, how do I make another billion? At some point, does the billion not feel empty? Don't you realize there's no more money that you can throw on top of this accomplishment that makes you feel any different than you're feeling now? And so it's that summit fever. People often feel when they climb Mount Everest, they often feel depressed, or valedictorians that achieve. I know that too. You get the best and you achieve it. And in that absolute moment when you get the trophy or the certificate or the accolade or the promotion, you go, I don't feel any different or any better. And now what do? I've been grinding for 30 years. I have no more energy to grind anymore. There's no more achievement left out for me. It can be a really sad place, all that achievement. And so I would look at, if I'm looking at leaders or people who want to climb the ladder or get to a place of achievement, if you're going to want to have that feel good, I think of it almost like a coaching tree in the NFL, right? Who are all the coaches that you created? Who are all the people that you built up? Who can you look to where your involvement in their life mattered? You're not important. You matter. And there's a difference. So I would say try to recalibrate what you think success is. And I think about that for me. The things I'm proudest of are the number of people who came to work for me and went to college for the first in their families to go to college. How many of them got MBAs? How many of them started as interns making $17 an hour, are now making 6 figures as controllers or CFOs? Like I used to tell people, if you really want something, you have a goal, whether it's sales, marketing, tech, finance, HR, whatever, spend a year with me and you will be senior management level, VP level, anywhere you go. And finding those people who are hungry, pulling them up and seeing them succeed is way more fulfilling and way more validating than any cars or any houses or any hot wives that you can acquire in your life.
That's fantastic. And I find that during these conversations, when you reach realizations like that, you can feel it. You can say that is something very important. Like focusing your success around the people that you're bringing up around you has a totally different feel than, hey, I achieved that 100 million mark and we exited, and maybe you don't feel good about the impact you had on people. Like you're gonna have pain, you're gonna have money, but
Well, and I've watched a lot of people sell their company for $100 million and they're crying themselves to the bank. They're so sad about it. Like turning over my baby, and they're so sad about it. And then they go and they're like, okay, now what do I do? And then you have the serial entrepreneurs, and if that's who part of your DNA, that's what you'll end up doing, is boards and serial entrepreneurship or consulting or whatever you end up doing. But the ones that I feel are so satisfied when they got that big exit, the 4 buddies of mine from college, we all came from nothing.
Mhm.
All of us now, we were never supposed to have houses. That was our trajectory. And here we all are. Our parents have houses. We all have healthcare. We're all us as a group made it together. It's not me making $100 million or $1 billion or whatever number you want to put on that. The people that are the most satisfied in their exits exited with people that they cared about.
Shared emotion.
Yeah,
Shared
shared success.
experience.
It's a
Yeah.
shared
Shared success.
party, right? When you win, and that's what motivates employees too. When I win, you win. When you lose, I lose. This is very controversial, and I tell it to all of my clients, especially ones that have executive bonus structures. And a lot of them are dependent on cash flows and profitability of their departments. You can't get the bonus if you got it by laying off your workers. If the profitability was driven, and not laid off because you finished a project and we knew that you hired a bunch of labor to do something they all knew was a year project and they're gone. But if you're achieving profitability by just squeezing your team, you didn't do anything. No bonus. If they can't get a bonus, if you got to basically, because the way I view it, that layoff, I'm taking food off their table to put it on mine. I don't like it amongst owners. I don't like it amongst any executive group where they go, I have to take from someone to take my bonus. To me, it's wrong. You could have kept all those people. You didn't. It's a bonus. It's not even your salary. Get it in stock. Get the bonus in equity. Get it in options. Get it in something else. But if you had to achieve the metric by squeezing your team, you didn't actually achieve the goal, which is you should have achieved profitability by making your department better, getting
Mhm.
more sales, innovating a new product, doing something, not just, oh, it's the end of the year. If I let go Tom, that's 20 grand off the bottom line, and now I hit my bonus tier. And then, by the way, turn around next spring and go, oh, Tom was really necessary. I got to go hire more people.
So then for executive leaders who are listening and those who are working their way up, demonstrating as a leader, making a conscious effort to identify the people who are really willing to work and pulling them forward
Yeah,
and saying, "Hey, I recognize that we got you on a salary, you're working 8 hours and this is your salary. And are you somebody who wants to work up? Make sure, of course, hey, that they're ready for it,
right.
but be willing to identify those people and bring them along and say, hey, you know what? Here, I see that you would work 12 hours a day. I see that you love working here. How about this? Let's put something together where we get you to that next level. We get you some sort of incentive. That would be the best way to transform your organization rather than looking to how can we cut a little bit here and take that person out.
And how motivating. And I want you to put yourself in the shoes of somebody who a leader comes to you and they go, I notice you. I want to pay you. I want to promote you. You didn't ask. You didn't have to put your name on a million reports and dump it on their desk. You didn't have to schedule an appointment and say, maybe in 6 months, can we talk about my compensation package? When they come and recognize you, what is a better motivator than that? If it was more leadership driven, the evaluation conversations, the promotion conversations, if we were proactive, what it does for morale, because think about everybody around who's watching that. They go, that person wasn't sucking up to us, didn't ask. They just did good work. If I do good work, maybe this will happen for me too. And if you're a good leader, you can see someone's improving,
Yeah.
have the same that positivity will build momentum, and that morale boost will drive profitability, it'll drive revenue, it drives so much. Happy people make happy products, make more money. They just do.
And especially when you look at really just how enterprises, corporations function, when there is recognition that's being brought around from the people up top and they are recognizing the efforts, they're going to get more out of that person. But then you've formed the basis that within this company, we are looking and rewarding those who are really putting in work. And then you start to build, it builds character through the organization where people are like, I actually really want to do more of the right work so I can be recognized. And the ones who aren't going to do the work, they just won't do the work anyway. But
Exactly. And people think that's a failure of leadership. It's not your company, right? Like when someone's not working, they're not happy no matter what you do. There's recognition, there's bonuses, you're doing all the right things, and you still got a bunch of grumpuses at the bottom who don't want to do anything. This isn't the company they want to work for. This
mm,
isn't their personality. They actually don't belong here. And you would laying off people or firing people who are quote unquote underperforming, if they're legit quote unquote underperforming, letting them go to go find a place where they're actually going to be more productive and have a higher revenue potential for themselves is actually a good thing. I even had this at one place where someone was working there probably 4 years or something, just getting more and more upset. Like, and I like to think of myself as a decent leader, not to toot that horn, but I would ask her all the time, what's going on? You're not committing, you're not happy, you're angry all the time, you're answering the phone angry all the time. What is going on with you? And she was staying because her family, a lot of them worked there. And so she thought she had to work there. And so she's, I got to keep this job, but I don't like it here. And eventually you go, okay, now I'm firing a family member. It's a group of people that I'm going to now alienate by letting this person go because they're just not doing the job. But as soon as I let her go, angry for a month, next month, she takes her real estate license test and she's never been happier.
Mhm.
She needed the permission to leave. Sometimes you need to push people out. This isn't your home. The corporate environment is not for everybody. Being like sitting in front of a desk is not for everybody, no matter how much incentive you put there. It's just not their personality. It's okay. They can go. And you'd rather them go because that negativity will breed negativity to everybody else. Like
Mhm.
they call it, like you've heard of it called like a cancer.
Yeah.
I've even seen it amongst high performers, right? They, your best person is the one who's complaining all damn day.
Mm.
Even that person doesn't belong there,
Mm.
which is scary, right? Like your best salesperson is to let that person go because they're being annoying. Sometimes you just got to.
Right. And I was actually going to ask that about high performance cultures, what things that you recognize, because the word that comes up here is, I think there is a healthy degree of toxicity, as many would define toxicity, okay?
Hmm.
Because among those who do not want to put the work in, okay, because those people do exist, or like you said, that's not their thing. That's
Hmm.
not where they're going to shine. There's a judgment that occurs where if your culture becomes predicated on being anti-toxic or being very welcoming and peaceful and all this kind of things, I think, at least in my experience, there's a healthy degree of, to use that word, conviction that occurs that could be deemed toxicity by some, but that when you really get a team of just incredibly high performers, it breaks through that definition. Or do you believe that it's been different in your experiences, or how? Because I think that in a lot of the high performance cultures that I've been a part of, there is a bit of aggression or things like that. There's a harshness that sometimes occurs to those who do not perform, because everyone knows how hard it is, or like how they work to perform.
Right.
They push those people out, and just curious how you balance the things we're talking about here, or
So you want everybody in the boat rowing the same direction, right? So if you have pods of people and you define performance by certain number metrics in relation to their team members, meaning there is a best, there's a better, there's a middle, there's a bad, right? So you're putting them on a grading scale. And only one of this team can be rewarded, right? Only one can be the high performer because they did better metrically than everybody else. Because we talk about data driven all the time, right? But if I do that, then I look at my top performer has to screw over their team. So like to get all the metrics, right? So I even saw it in a call center once. One person would overwork. They're supposed to share calls, right? It's supposed to be in a queue, and they would give terrible customer service because they weren't graded on how good they resolved the customer's problem. They were graded on how many calls they did. So I would get a call. They would spend a minute, hang up. Nope, I'm not going to do that. Thank you. Goodbye. But we thought they were resolving problems in 60 seconds or less. That's what the metric is showing, right? They're answering the call. They're completing the call in a minute. This person far and away is answering more calls, resolving more customer service calls than anybody else in their team.
they're resolving their problems in under 1 minute.
But that's the metric. You give them a list of metrics and they say, how do I game this system? Good is defined by this. So then I'll just be good at that. All I have to do is answer the call. There's no other part to this. There's no other grade to this. And so now everybody else looks infinitely bad because they're spending time on the phone and actually resolving questions. Or they can't, even if they are going fast, so-and-so's taking all the calls. They're just answering it so fast that no one else can work. So now they're looking idle. You've made everybody else look bad so that you can look good. I would say counterproductive. Counterproductive. You have to define, and that's really hard. And people think there's a set it and forget it type of thing to setting metrics. You have to really get good at defining what success looks like in roles. And the promise I always made to my employees is I'm only comparing you to you. So and so on your team doesn't answer any of the phone calls. They're sitting, they're twiddling thumb. They don't even want to. That exists. There's a lot of those. And you're answering all the calls. You're doing the work of 3 people. Okay, I'm not judging the whole team by the fact that this person isn't answering, and I'm not judging you by the fact that you're doing more than that person. I'm judging you by how you're doing against you. Here's what I liked about what you did in the last quarter or the last 6 months, right? You had the highest customer satisfaction rating, you were efficient on the calls, you had less complaints, whatever it is. Here are the positive things. Where I see you can improve is here and here, right? Pick whatever metrics you want. Hit them next week or next evaluation, and there's a bonus in it for you. Or there's something in it, an extra PTO day. There's something in it for you. I'm comparing you to you. So no one can drag you down, and you can't drag anybody else down. It doesn't, but in doing that, if you also set that and then set team goals, all of a sudden, now we're helping each other. Because if I help you improve, then the team improves. And if you do something well and help me improve, we're both looking better. We both get the benefit. We want the whole team to get the bonus. We want me helping you benefits me. And you have to find ways to motivate that. Metrics often, that cutthroat, I got to close the most deals, I got to do this, will result in shortcuts, will result in aggression, will result in animosity. We started this conversation talking about being an A student, right? You've worked in team projects before,
Oh
right?
yeah.
You go to school and there's the high achiever, and in a team project of 4, there's the one that will do the whole project by themselves. There's the one that will help a bit. There's the one that's going to be, okay, I attended the meetings, but I didn't contribute anything. And there's the one that didn't show up, right? And then what ends up happening is the one that doesn't show up usually drags down the higher performing ones. I'm not going to do the whole work for everybody. Why? Why would I do the whole work for everybody? They're going to get an A off my back. Why would I do that? And I go the other way. I don't care what grade they get.
100%.
Tomorrow, they're going to have to take a test and they'll fail it just the same. Okay, so this is the 1A on their grade sheet, and it came from me. I'm not going to be dragged down by these guys. If I have to do the whole project by myself, I do the whole project by myself. I don't care. And I get my A. It is irrelevant the grade everybody else gets. Irrelevant to me.
Exactly.
But you'll see that your lowest performer will start to drag down your high performers because they're like, there's no benefit. They're getting paid the same as me. Find a way to make sure that's not true.
So it seems in the entrepreneurial world, there's already resistance externally. When you're going to sell a customer, they're going to have objections. If you're going to hire somebody, they're going to have questions. Or really, you are out there trying to sell the product to the market, get yourself to a certain point. There's competition, there's resistance. But then internally, you don't want that resistance as much. You want to create a culture where there's receptivity, support, creativity, the emotional security or freedom to take the risks that are required to overcome, take the risks, say the things, do the actions that are required to overcome that external resistance. So that's how what I get from you is that's how you're getting both.
Yeah, that's how you get both. And I think it's important that we try, and I would like to say go back to that, but I actually don't think it ever existed. So let's go towards that because I don't think very many companies ever did this. Like motivation has been a struggle for organizations for a long time. It used to be, if I was going to say the height of loyalty, one, there was high amount of unions, right? So loyalty was baked into the contract. But when there was more loyalty, there was a promise, right? you're here for 5 years, you get this, and then you get 10 years, you get this, and then this. But if you make it to the end, there's a pension, there's this promise. And so people commit to you. Not that I want that same level of commitment, but I feel like ignoring the value of commitment and commitment to your fellow teammates, commitment to the organization, commitment to the work you do, actually care, have pride in the work that you do, ignoring all of that and just focusing on raw data and metrics is also damaging. Like we think, oh, this productivity is so good, but it's actually not that good. It's really mediocre productivity. We can be getting significantly more.
And then to connect the dot there of what you mentioned is getting more out of people is often just requires giving more, right? It's often as simple as that. Give more, put yourself in the position to care and understand the dynamics of the team, who's on your team, who you're leading, what their goals are, their desires are. And it's like that time you're investing into that is going to be worth so much more than if you're just trying to pull them along and tell them we have to hit the 2 million in
Right.
this quarter. We have to do it. It's when you really figure out what drives people as a leader, you're going to get a lot more performance out of people.
I agree with that. I think though we have to be mindful that there is a conflict, an inherent conflict, right? Because the directive that you're getting from shareholders is drive more profitability, right? More shareholder equity. And a lot of times you're, personality wise or internally, you're thinking, okay, the pressure to drive more profits, pressure to increase that bottom line. There's only a few ways to do those things in a short term. So I get the pressure, right?
Mm.
So you think, oh, I just need to crack the whip a little bit more, crack the whip a little bit more, make my employees scared to lose their jobs. And then it's if you just hit that horse a little bit harder,
Mm.
they'll go that incrementally more quick. I don't think that's actually true, and then we end up trying to get too much out of these people. But on metrics, record-breaking profits, right? You look amazing. But also culturally, we're saying to people, and there's a new backlash to being soft, right? Caring about your fellow person, having these conversations, taking the time to do one-on-ones, right? Is that going to generate enough productivity that drives bottom line revenue? Can you see that in a quarter? Can you see that in 6 months, which is how you're measured? I don't know that it will, right? That's a long term process.
Mm.
Motivating people and inspiring people and getting the best out of people is a long journey. And if you have to hit numbers in 15 days, which often happens, right? The end of the month quotas,
Yep.
most people, their bag of tricks is very short now because I can't pour into that person quick enough to get them to feel good, to get them to turn around the sale fast
Yeah.
enough,
And it's
right?
like if that's the baton that you're juggling, you're probably juggling the wrong baton. I already have, if you've set that groundwork appropriately, the purpose, the things that are going to drive true performance and delivery of that person's objective, then that's what's going to win versus just trying to crack the whip.
But if are we not, that even comes from on high, right? So we think of managers in these layers, right? Each person, does your CEO care about that? If your CEO doesn't care and your shareholders don't care,
Mm.
and they aren't going to give you the time. Think about it. And I love football and sports references. You didn't make the playoffs. I hired you. You were supposed to make the playoffs. You didn't make the playoffs. You're fired. You got one season,
Yep.
right? How do you turn this team around in one season, right? You need time. And the corporate environment, the shareholder environment, the stock market environment is not conducive to giving companies time.
Mm.
It's just not. So that pressure that's coming from all the way up here, if you don't crack the whip, then they're not cracking the whip. And then I look like I didn't crack the whip. Now I'm out of a job.
Mm.
So this requires a broad scale reconditioning of what it means to be an entrepreneur, what it means to be a CEO, what it means to be a shareholder, and what is it, what value are we really trying to create here? If it's all just dividends and profits for me, there's an end date, there's an expiration to that. There's only so much you can squeeze out of a lemon. Eventually, there's no more juice.
Right.
And then you're shocked, going, why aren't you driving more profits? Why aren't you? There's no more all of our employees are poor, and the whole country is poor, and they don't have money to buy our products anymore.
Mm.
We've squeezed too much consumer value. We've squeezed too much employee value out of this lemon, and there's nothing left. Eventually, you're going to hit there. And I think we're getting close.
Do you believe that's where some of these factors are why a lot of companies are staying private as well?
Oh,
That
absolutely. Oh, absolutely. I also think there's a selfishness to that, which is smart. You know how expensive it is to be public? It is so ridiculously expensive to be public. And people think, oh, once you're public, oh, I'm my own boss or I'm CEO and you have this prestige and whatever. No, now you have 100,000 or 1,000,000 bosses. You know how many angry emails you get? And then the revenue, you have to have an idea big enough that there's no way to get there without raising $1 billion and going public and sharing that risk across a broad swath of people. But if you have a profit generating business and you're taking that and putting that in your family's pocket and you make all the decisions, and the only person that you answer to are your customers, the ones that actually buy your product, there's a piece to that. And there's a win to that because you're making so much more money and you have so much more control. And control matters for a lot of entrepreneurs. So
Mm.
much more control. I've seen a lot of people go the PE route or the VC route or the uplist route, and then they're shocked a year later when they're fired out of their own company. It happens all the time. They're like, I built this. Steve Jobs, I built this. This is mine. It's not yours anymore. It's theirs. Yeah, staying private gives you a lot more leeway. And now you don't have somebody you answer to next quarter who's going to be calling you going, you didn't beat the street estimates. We all pegged you to deliver this many cars this quarter, and you fell short by 20,000 units. Yeah, because there's a global economic crisis. We don't care. You don't care. And then your stock price drops, and now you're ousted. Yeah, being private, there's a lot of benefits to that.
And that has been a shift that I think not a lot of people expected or predicted 15 years ago.
Oh.
They didn't connect the dots that with all the factors that were coming together, people want to stay private and everything like that. And now that ultimately affects our IPO market, which affects the available capital for reinvesting back into business,
Mm-hmm.
everything along those lines.
It all feeds itself, and you will see that lots of things happening up at the top culturally as America or globally as global citizens will impact all the way down to your customer service rep. Like all of this is interconnected. And so if we want a better corporate culture, if we want more profits, if we want more innovation, if we want to raise all these boats, we might need to take a pause and actually think about what is the future that we actually want. And everybody up and downstream needs to align on that vision.
Raise the water level.
Yeah.
Raise the water level.
Yeah.
How to make a bigger wave so that the water moves around more, so that everyone does a little additional
Right.
action.
And there's benefits to that. I think there's a lot of people that still think your relationship with your employees is a zero-sum game. It's not. When your employees are well fed, housed, less stressed, they work harder, they buy more, they're happier, they travel more, they do more. And people think, oh, but I don't want to sacrifice my profits. I'm overpaying my employees because now my profitability is lower. But I would argue that do that for a year or two, and you will realize you're making way more money now than you did when you were squeezing them. There's way more money, way more wealth to be built. The richest of the rich don't actually have to get that much poorer for that long to be making double what they're making now. If they think they're rich now, being actually good to your employees will make you so much richer.
And so I think there's a very thoughtful lesson for leaders to care about your employees, still drive for the goals, go for it,
Yes,
but really invest into those people who are willing to put the work in, and there'll be rewards on the other side.
absolutely.
Take a little bit of the dip.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
it's not as scary as people think it is. And it's not as soft as people think it is. People would say when I was working, and people often called me intimidating and hard, and I had high expectations. I absolutely had high expectations. There's nothing wrong with high expectations. You don't have to be soft and kumbaya and everybody gets to stay home because they saw a parrot die. It's not even their parrot. There is something to be said that we all need a thicker skin and come to work and do the work that we're being paid to do.
Mm.
That's okay. But there's also something to be said about rewarding good work and knowing the difference between good and bad work.
And oftentimes in our culture, punching somebody is easier than explaining your feelings. And then so there's actually it's a
Yes.
harder thing. It actually requires being more tough, the vulnerability that it takes to go
Yes.
in and ask somebody the question, hey, how are you really doing? Do you feel engaged? Do you feel like what you're doing here matters?
Yes. And take
Part of that.
that with whatever hurt they're bringing to that table. It's the hardest thing to explain to somebody. Well, when I'm a consultant and we meet and they say, none of my employees work and everybody, I hate everybody. I'm like, that might be a you thing.
Yeah.
When everybody is bad, that's a you thing. And it's really when we have those evaluations and people are critical of you as a leader, critical of you as a manager, you can get defensive easily. We're all people. We're human, right? We're going to be in that meeting. We're going to get hurt by what this person is bringing to me. If you're a real leader, you're going to take that criticism, go, okay, does everybody feel that way? Am I
Mm,
doing this a lot? Is there something I'm bringing to the table that I don't realize I'm bringing to the table? Can I be different? And improving yourself, being better at being a leader, like helping your employees also helps you. Like I got so much wealth out of hearing certain things from my staff about things that irked them, things that I used to say, mantras I used to have that they interpreted differently than I did, and recognizing, oh, this is a me problem.
mm,
This is a me problem. I'm not being clear about expectations. I think this is what I should expect out of my employees, but that's not actually their job. That's not their job. That's actually a different personality set altogether. I did not hire any of the people to do what I want done. I hired people to do this task for these metrics, but what I wanted was this other goal to be achieved. They're not doing that. And I'm not being clear. And so then, okay, now I have to think about who I'm recruiting. Am I hiring the right skill set for the goal that I have? What personalities traits fit this goal? What mix of personality traits fit that goal? That's a very complicated question. But if we look at the future of leadership, that's an exciting problem to solve. If you like leadership and you want to move up and you want to do this, those are exciting problems to solve.
So tell us more about Mars Corporate Advisors as you're looking forward into the next few years or decades of your life. What is more Mars Corporate Advisors all about for you? What's the impact of the mission that you're seeking to?
So my specialty is companies in transition. So I love, and because I've been CEO and I've literally sat in every C-suite, I've sat in every regular seat of a business, right? I've answered those phones myself. I've done the filing myself. I've stocked product myself, right? I like going into companies that are looking to the future and they go, okay, I've reached a plateau. I'm ready for the next step. And so they're either uplisting, selling, doing succession planning, going private equity, or innovating. They're building new product, or they want to launch a full scale marketing campaign to get from this level of sales to the next level of sales. I love those companies. And what my bread and butter is to go in there and set up processes, help them understand what technologies they need, help them understand what financial metrics they should be looking at, making sure the financials that they're looking at actually tell the right story and that they can use them to make decisions. People don't think about that a lot. Your financial statements matter. The fact that they're accurate matters because that's how you make decisions, right? About cash flow and everything else. So I go in and I set all of those things up so that when they go to that next phase, they're running on all cylinders. All these processes are working and we're solving critical problems. It's a fundamental time of fear, ambition, and innovation. It is when a company's in transition, it is a very exciting time to be at that company. By the way, that it can be negative too. Sometimes you lose your biggest customer and you're now trying to retool, get agile, get lean. What do we need to do to survive this downturn? It can go in the negative too. But that's what Mars Corporate focuses on, are these types of organizations that are future-driven organizations and are trying to build the best company they can to be the best company that they can be. And I love being part of that ideating and that dreaming. Okay, have you ever heard of the where people talk about I want to lose weight? And the meme is you want this, but you want to do this. In order to get this, you have to do this. And that's what I love to bring to the table is not focus on what I'm being told to do so much. Like, hey, you're coming in, build me a new set of financials. Okay, absolutely, I can build that. Why? We want a new set of financials because we're going to be audited, because we want to sell to PE, or because we want to go and do an IPO, or because we want to do this. Okay, if you want to do this, then we need to do this. And I feel like I drive a lot of value there because I'm not just setting them up for that next incremental step in their transition. I'm setting them up for who they're going to be 10 years from now. And then they're thinking, I'm going to be here 10 years from now, and I need to be ready for it.
So for all the listeners, what's one exercise that you could leave us with? Not physical exercise, maybe. Hey, tell us how to do push-ups, but
Gotta stretch.
a mental exercise that we can run ourselves through to help us gain clarity or whatever objective you think that would be valuable for listeners.
I do this a lot for myself, and I encourage it amongst all of my entrepreneurs, and regardless of position that you are in entrepreneurship or leadership. So whether you're HR or you're in a technical space or whatever, to get to where you want to go, you have to know where you've been. And so there are a lot of times where I will sit to myself and go, here are all the places I've been, good, bad, ugly, indifferent. All the time, remembering all the times I've cried, remembering all the times I've gotten fired, remembering all the times that I've succeeded. Where was I? And when I thought about my hopes and dreams when I was young, right? The 4-year-old, the 6-year-old, the 18-year-old, and you've imagined your life of what felt good in your dreams. Often take stock of, okay, how much of this have I actually realistically checked off? Because you can get in a spiral of thinking, I haven't done very much, or I hate my job, I hate my life, I hate my spouse, I hate my kid, I hate all of this stuff. But when you go and you take stock of the life you actually lived, the hardships you've faced, and the jubilation you've experienced, all these things that have made you who you are in your life, and you don't look it back on it with resentment or longing of an easier time. And you go, when I had dreams, this is what they were. And I then take stock of who you are today, go, oh crap, I can pay my bills, or I know I have the skill set to find that I can monetize to pay my bills. I have something valuable within myself to get there. I'm here. I didn't die. I didn't get sick. I didn't kill anyone. There's a lot of things that make you really great. And you start taking stock of what am I good at? What do I like doing? And I do this probably once every 6 months. Do I like what I'm doing? Do I like this skill set that I'm monetizing? And once I do that, the next exercise is where do I want to go? Because now I've come so far. I believe in myself. And now I can dream again. It's a really pleasant place when you can experience that youthful drive, that youthful naivete of dreaming. What's next? What can I do next? And we talked about this on the last show, and when we were talking about me coming on, and I told you I was podcasting. And I said to myself, there was a point where I did that same exercise. This is where I've been. This is what I've done. This is what I like doing. And I came to the realization finally, now here at almost 40, I have no more to prove. I have no more to prove. With no more to prove, now what do I want to do? I want to talk. I want to write. I want to do philanthropy, whatever it is. I start dreaming again. And then that led me to, okay, I wanted a podcast. Great, make a phone call and make that happen. Because now you've built up a lot of foundation within yourself and strength within yourself through that exercise to go do the thing you want to do.
There we go. So for everybody listening, go ahead and do that. Take inventory of your progress that you made over the journey, where you're at today, and what you want to do looking forward, and all the deep specific steps that you included, which are so fantastic. And for those investors or founders or leaders who want to get in contact with you, what's the best way to do that? We'll include some links to wherever your social medias and whatnot. But
The best way to get in contact through to me, I have a website. I believe my email is smars@mars.com. But if you can't reach me through there, my email is shitalmars@gmail. You can get me. And people are like, "Oh, that's your personal." That's where all sorts of junk goes. So it's fine. Go ahead. It's not tied to anything. Go ahead and reach me out. My email is my name. You can definitely find me a lot of ways.
outstanding. Sheetal, thank you for being on the Titans of Today podcast. You're a wellspring of insight and information specific to all the topics we talked about, and of course, a broad range beyond that as well. So, for everybody who was moved by this, reach out to her, see if you can work with her, or really just continue to support this great person. So, Sheetal, the time has flown, by the way. It has been 2 hours.
Yes.
So,
Thank you
but
so much for having me on. It's always great talking to you.
likewise. So next time you'll have to come here. I'm getting set in
Yes.
here, so we'll be able to do it live, have the cameras and the lights and everything. So that'll be
Done. I'm in.
awesome. Thank you, everybody. Make sure to like and subscribe and share this content so we can continue to put out great episodes and interviews with people like Sheetal. We'll see you guys in the next interview.
Hey everyone, thank you for watching this episode of Titans Up Today. What did you learn from it? Make sure to drop a comment below with your most valuable insight so that other people can engage in the conversation around what the speaker brought to the table. And then on another front, make sure to subscribe so that every time we drop a new episode, you will be notified. And that way you can keep fueling your dreams and your brain with fresh insights which can help you along your journey and along your path to your goals. So thank you so much again, and I look forward to seeing you in the next interview.